Balo year of winter screen look fekene television tool. On the 22nd of September this year, Diarmaid Roche went to his eternal reward. Diarmaid Roche from Carriganimmer has spent the last 15 to 20 years in Africa, especially in the Gambia, as a teacher with the Spirit and Order. We'd like to pay tribute to himself and to his two brothers, Father Jack and Stephen, who also contributed to missionary activity. And here I have his niece, Sinead Corkery, to tell us about her unique uncles. Sinead, you're very welcome.
Good evening, thank you, Donald.
Sinead, where does one start speaking about your uncle Diarmaid? I only knew him since 2001, but you lived with him and you went to visit him in the Gambia.
That's true, Donald. Arlene, my sister, and I went to visit Diarmaid in the Gambia in 2007. It was truly a remarkable experience. We all, as sponsors to Diarmaid's education fund, received letters annually detailing life in the Gambia. It gave us an insight or a glimpse into how life was in the Gambia. However, visiting there made it very real. It was wonderful to see at first hand the work that Diarmaid has been doing for the last 20 years. The Gambia is a beautiful country in terms of landscape and weather, but unfortunately in other aspects it lacks greatly. It's, I guess, a third world country, parts of it, and where Diarmaid lived was out in the rural community where facilities were very limited. Diarmaid's house itself was lacked running water. In the morning, buckets of water were brought from the well, which was something we would have never experienced. Diarmaid this never fazed Diarmaid. He was quite used to it. It made him one with the people. He was living in similar conditions to the people of the Gambia.
I remember one time he was talking about a very warm night that he slept on the floor. And when he woke up in the morning, he was covered in cockroaches and various other insects. And, you know, he had a wonderful sense of humour and full of life. The last time we interviewed him, of course, it was 8 years ago, he was kind of jumping out of his skin. It was in the same room we were in that evening, and he was in tremendous form. And so he was in August, on the 14th of August. Wasn't he at a wedding on the 14th of August this year?
He was. When on his return this year, my sister Karen got married on the 14th of August. Diarmaid was with us on that day. He was usher at the wedding in fantastic form. It was a wonderful family gathering, as all weddings are. So it was a lovely opportunity for him to meet neighbours, family and friends. And he had a wonderful time that day meeting up with people on the first occasion, or on his visit home. He was in wonderful form that day. As you said, he had a wonderful sense of humour, and I think it was something that was very important to him in the type of work he was doing. A lot of the work was very trying and very difficult to switch off, I guess, from the primitive conditions and the difficult conditions that the people lived. So it was his sense of humour and his personality and his very strong faith that helped him to cope with those type of conditions out in the Gambia.
Tell me something about his beginnings and right up to his death. You know, a short account of his life.
Yes, so Dermot was trained in UCC as a secondary school teacher. He was, this is a nice picture here of his graduation in UCC. He taught Irish I suppose, primarily in Mount Sion College in Waterford, where he spent most of his years, and in fact he was vice principal of that school for a number of years. I suppose if we look back on it now, he was at that time also giving of his time to the youth, and that was something that seemed to follow through in his life's choices. It was in 1988 when his mother passed away that he made the decision and moved to Africa initially for the first time. That no doubt was a difficult decision, leaving the comforts of Irish living that we would have had here at that time to very different conditions, very primitive conditions in Africa. He continued his teaching in Africa initially when he went over there, and he lived in Zambia initially, and then in later years moved to the Gambia in West Africa, where he lived out the end of his days. He loved Africa, loved the Gambia, loved the people, and loved the work he was doing.
And of course, we must remember that he was the sponsor of about 500 students. Students who would not have any education, but for him.
Absolutely. And that was the major part of his work, and especially in his latter years, of administering the fund, the education fund, for the children of the Gambia. Education is not free in the Gambia, which is very difficult in a country of very limited resources. When Orleen and I visited the Gambia in 2007, we met with a lot of the principals of the schools over there that were benefiting from the sponsorship. The sponsorship came from the Macroom, Mill Street area, family, friends, neighbours. It was fantastic, the support that Dermot has received down through the years. We had accounts from the teachers over that, as obviously money was very tight. They have large families in the Gambia, and if money was short, they would choose to educate the boys rather than the girls, and the girls would be left at home. So the funds that were coming from this area were doing immense work for the children of the Gambia, giving them that chance of education. We're very lucky that the Bishop of the Gambia is an Irishman, Dr. Robert Ellison, and he is assisting us in maintaining this sponsorship fund going forward. It has been absolutely remarkable, the generosity of people, and even since Dermot's passing, people are still as dedicated as ever to support this cause and to give very generously to this fund that we are endeavouring to continue. And I guess I'd like to take this opportunity again to thank everyone who has donated to this fund. Rest assured, with the help of Bishop Robert Ellison, it is being administered to the most needy students in the Gambia, and we'll try and keep this going in Dermot's memory.
Thank you, Sinead. And now we will give you an opportunity of seeing again a video that was done in 2001 for the Mission Alive project. In joining in the celebrations of Mission Alive, we have endeavoured to find people who are on the missions, and it's quite difficult because a lot of them don't get home on holidays. But already we've had a sister, a brother, and a priest who've had experience on the missions, and now it's the turn of a layman. And this layman comes from the parish of Clondrohid, from Carriganima, and he is Diarmid de Roche. And Diarmid has a most interesting tale to tell of his experiences at home and abroad. You're very welcome, Diarmid. Diarmid, what part of Africa are you in at the moment?
West Africa in the Gambia. It's the bulge, it's about halfway down the bulge there.
Yes. And of course...
it's surrounded by Senegal.
Yes. And of course the continent of Africa has about 50 different republics at this stage.
It has, I suppose, yeah.
What size is the Gambia?
Gambia is about the size of Munster, with a population of about 1.25 million.
And has it any colonial experience?
Oh, it had. It was colonised by Britain, by England.
So they'd have English, would they?
The problem with Africa was when the colonizer went, where you had tribalism, they couldn't accept a tribal language because the other tribes would object. And in all cases, they have accepted the colonizing language, which is English in the Gambia. It is French in Sierra Leone, or French in Senegal. It's English in Sierra Leone. It's English in Ghana. It's English in Nigeria. It's Portuguese in Guinea-Bissau. It's French in Guinea-Conakry. They're all West African countries. So that they accepted the language of the colony. And I agree with them because do you see what happened in Burundi and Rwanda with the tribalism there?
Yes, yes. Now, to a large extent, you haven't that problem amongst the tribes in Gambia.
You wouldn't, but they can get very annoyed. I remember one time at Massin Buying and Buyam, and the interpreter was interpreting in, the priest was speaking English, and he was interpreting, and he decided he'd interpret in Mandinka. All right? And I saw a teacher, the vice principal in the school, he walked right up the centre of the church, up to the priest, and said, "No, this is not Mandinka country, this is Jola country." And the guy had to interpret in Jola. He wouldn't allow it to happen. So, the tribalism is strong. Yes. I was there, I was watching it.
And how many tribal languages would you have?
Oh, there are at least 8, maybe 10, and they are all distinctive. No. They are not dialects. Yeah. They're not related because it shows how separate the tribes stayed in the past. Now, I saw a case where a lad, one of my past pupil of mine, and he impregnated a girl from another tribe, and her parents wouldn't allow him to marry the girl. Right? Refused point blank, he was from another tribe. By God, he decided he'd live with her anyway, and when they had 3 or 4 children, the parents relented and they decided, well, no. At this stage, they had 4 children, I think, and they gave them permission to marry, but no, the tribalism quite strong.
But I suppose, in our own country, you had something of that nature in terms of marriage, We wouldn't marry the Carriganima crowd kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
You would have had that, yes.
Knocker van Taling.
Taling is though. Now, you were talking about the different languages. Now, you went out to a school in Gambia. How many years ago now?
9 years there. 9 years, yeah. 9, yes. 10 years, 10 years, yeah.
And what language are you operating?
I'm operating in English because that is the official language and I teach English in the school.
Yes.
And the official language of the school, by rule, is English. Okay? But as soon as they leave school, they're in their own languages again. And most of the students there, they can speak 3 or 4 local languages. Yes. They have no problem.
And would each of these languages now be, would have a full cultural baggage, to speak, yes. Customs, music, song?
Yeah, well, the music is limited. It is all to drumming. They don't play any other. They have some musical instruments in the city that they play, but I don't know what they are. But it is the drumming. All their music for dancing is drumming.
Oh, yes, yes.
And in the church, it's drumming.
It is a kind of a mobile phone as well, I suppose, the drum.
I suppose it was at one time.
Yes, at one time. Now, the school was there, of course, before you went.
Oh, yeah. I was in with the Catholic mission in Buyam, but it was terribly hot there. And I was there for 8 years, and I decided that I'd move nearer the sea. I was going to give up teaching and move near the sea, because it was too hot.
For instance, where was Buyam?
Buyam was 64 miles inland in the Gambia.
In the Gambia, yes.
The way we used to deal with the heat, and this was the truth of it, you go in to the shower and you have a cool shower, because you'd never have a cold shower because the water's never cold, it's lukewarm. Sure. And you'd go in then into your bedroom and you'd lie down on the tiles without drying yourself. And that would cool you down something and you'd fall asleep. And about an hour later you wake up and you'd be soaked and sweaty again. The same thing again. But where I am now, there's a beautiful cool breeze coming in from the sea, and I have no problem. It's beautiful.
When you're talking about temperature now, would that be maintained the whole year round?
No.
Yeah.
Winter, around Christmas, that's the winter time. Yes. And it can be quite cool.
Yes.
Now, I think the lowest recorded temperature is 15 degrees Celsius. Now, we wouldn't find that very cold here, but I find it very cold.
Yes.
When you're used to the warm, when you're used to the warm temperature, you feel it at 15.
Yeah. 15 Celsius, I suppose. Yesterday evening now was about 14, 15 Celsius, And how high would it go in Celsius?
It would go to 42, 42, 43.
So you're quite warm.
But
the lowest it would go, you're saying, is 15?
I think it's 16, I think is the lowest recorded temperature.
Well, of course, it would never freeze.
Oh, no, never freeze, no.
Now, who was operating the school?
The Christian Brothers were operating the school in Buyam, but I'm now with the Spiritans, the Holy Ghost Fathers from Ireland.
Oh, yes.
And my parish priest lives beside me, and he is from Tipperary, Jackie Sharp.
I see.
And we're the only two white men in all that area. We're in Manjago country, and the language is Manjago. Now, they were pagans.
Yes.
You don't say pagans anymore, of course, you say animists.
Oh, yes.
Because pagan has connotations which could be offensive, but they're animists. And
animist as in adoring nature.
Spirits, nature, and that kind of thing.
Of course.
And the ancestors and so on.
Oh, yes.
And Jackie Sharp from Tipperary, he was functioning inside. When he went out first, he was functioning in a place called Canifing. There was a church there. And he had a double-barrel shotgun, and he used to go shooting in the bush. And this is written down, recorded history. Didn't he see a domesticated pig in the bush? And he said, there's something strange here. He said, because Muslims don't have pigs. They don't eat pork. And then he followed the pig, and he came to a cluster of huts, mud huts. They were animists. And he converted them, and that was the beginning of the village, and there are probably 700 or 800 in the village now. And he built a church, and he built a school, built a primary school, built a nursery school, he built a junior secondary school, and the new high school. I went down to that. I started there with the new school.
Okay.
And it's there I am at the moment. And it's much, much cooler, much more pleasant. I like it very much down there.
So about 1982, you started in the Gambia.
No, 88.
Oh, 88.
88 I went to Africa. And in 1992, I went to the Gambia.
I see. Now, of course, prior to going to Africa, you were in a very high-powered school.
I was in Mount Sion, the famous Mount Sion in Waterford, the Mount Sion of the hurling. I was vice principal there in the secondary school.
Yes, what I mean by high-powered. There was a lot of power going with being vice principal of a school. I suppose you had, 700 or 800 pupils?
Oh, yeah, it's a big school.
And as vice principal, it was an important position now. What made you decide to give up a very comfortable position in reality to go out putting yourself under...
There were a number of things happened. My mother died in February of that year, 88. And at the same time, they advertised for teachers that we could take a 5-year. They advertised for teachers that we could take a 5-year career break. And I said, to hell with it, what? And I took year by year. And when I had completed the 5 years, there was no way I could return to the Irish situation. Absolutely no way. I could never face back having experienced what teaching is like in Africa. I know I couldn't do it. So I resigned the whole thing.
Yeah. Now, what was teaching like? Why was it so attractive in Africa rather than, say, Mount Zion?
They're so keen. There are no discipline problems. The greatest discipline problem we would have in Africa wouldn't be noticed in Ireland at that time. And I'm sure that discipline is much more difficult in Ireland now than what it was in 1988. I never had any discipline problem myself, thank God, and I used to love teaching. I used to teach Irish to the seniors in Mount Zion, to the Leaving Certs, the Honours Irish, and I used to enjoy it very much. Then I was in charge of discipline, and my biggest problem would be this, trying to discipline for teachers who didn't have discipline. And I'm sure you experienced in your own time problems like that, trying to sort out discipline problems for teachers who hadn't got it.
Yeah, I forget if I ever had such a problem. You put it at the back of your mind and you get on with life.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yes.
But I'm talking about, you as a principal, you had to deal with situations like that. But when I thought of all that, and the ease of teaching and the appreciation of the Africans themselves, and what it is possible to do out there on the front line. Yes. I used to look at it at the front line. For instance, now I have taught students who are now qualified teachers, qualified nurses, who are in the army, and they come in their army uniform to meet me, and they're as proud as punch of their army uniform. They're in the civil service. They are some of them are studying now at university. It's a great thing, when you see people progressing like that, because,
And appreciating...
and the number of people then that I have sponsored through education, they would never have been educated. Yes. And when you see those, doing well, qualified and getting a good salary, on Gambian terms, of course, that there's great satisfaction from that.
But you gave up a comfortable position at the same time, probably a car.
I had a car and I had a beautiful bungalow by the sea in Tramore, by the golf course.
Oh my God.
By the golf course in Tramore.
Yeah, and then
30 Pine Grove.
Nice temperature down there, nice climate, nice environment. It was an admirable decision to make.
Well, it's something I wanted to do, and I think, I suppose, it was something I thought about going to Africa before that. I remember when I started off teaching, I made contact with Ethiopia about going out there, sampling what it was like for a while, and I never did it. But it came to the time, as I said, when my mother had died, and I was quite free. I remember saying to my sister one time about going to Africa, and she said, wait, as long as your mother is alive.
Yes. And
I thought that was a good suggestion, because I was the one that wasn't married.
Yes.
And as far as my mother was concerned, she claimed all of me, do you see?
Yes.
But if I was married, she'd have to share,
yes.
And she used to look forward to my coming home and take her around and so on.
Now, let's examine the school life. You're talking now about a post-primary school.
A high school, post-primary school.
Yes.
The majority of our students will be over 20. The vast majority will be over 20.
Oh.
Some of them could be over 30 even.
Yeah.
But they're tremendously well behaved. But the big discipline problem we have is coming late in the morning. And the poor devils, they run so fast that they're absolutely breathless. Now, if you saw a fella strolling in and looking around him late, you'd be very annoyed. But these people make such an effort to be in time. And there were students who travelled and are travelling almost 10 miles to school every day. And
on foot.
On foot. They'll leave the hut at 5:30 in the morning, and they'll jog for 9 miles until they reach the road, and they have another 9 kilometres until they reach the road, and then they have another 7 kilometres along the road to the school. That's 16 kilometres. That's almost 10 miles, very short of 10 miles, and they won't have eaten anything. They'll have eaten nothing, and they'll come to me then at the break and they'll say, I'm hungry. My goodness, sure, of course they're hungry. And the amount of dialysis I have given, that was given by the good people here in Ireland, and I bought over 70 bicycles, 75 bicycles, I'd say, all donated by sponsors here around this locality and into Cork, and
Now, not only the bicycles, but those lunches that you provide, uniform.
Oh, the uniform, school books, pens,
textbooks. Yes.
If they get sick and if they have to go into the hospital, that fare, to give them fare for it. And one thing that used to sad me very much was when they would come to holidays, people that had long distances and that need transport, and all transport charges, and you have people hanging around the school there, have no way of going home. They couldn't walk, it was too far. And you'd see them around there at Christmas and at Easter. And I have sent home nearly every one of them I met with these funds from Ireland. And one day I came at a lad, and it was Christmas Eve. And he was fierce lonesome out here. Couldn't go home. And I gave him the money to go home. Well, he went off jumping over ground and shouting in top of his voice. He was so delighted that he would go home for Christmas.
Yes.
And only for I having the money that was given to me by the good people here in Ireland, I wouldn't be able to help him in that.
So that boy now that went home for Christmas, he was actually staying in one of the cottage compound.
No. He was staying in the compounds of the village, the huts.
I see. But he was from another.
He was from
area.
another. Yeah, he was from another area altogether.
Maybe 50 or 60 miles.
50
away.
or 60 miles.
Yes.
The farthest farthest away a person home was something around 240 miles.
I see.
And he was sponsored by my people as well.
Now you were saying there these students, they were 20 and over, a lot of them. Now what had they been doing in the meantime?
They wouldn't be doing much. They'd be doing some little bit in farming, but they wouldn't have any money for schooling, a lot of them.
I see.
And some of them will go a certain distance and they'll be thrown out of school. And they are thrown out of school. There is no escape, no money, no education, and they're expelled. And that is right up to the top. That's the backing from the Department of Education. Out they go. And a person could be out for 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years until they'd get money somewhere. And then they'd come back to school.
But is there some primary education sponsored by the department?
The primary education is there, but they have to pay as well.
I see.
But it's small. I sponsor in Buyam, the primary school there. There was about 800 students there in the primary school. I was sponsoring about 600 of them.
Look at that.
Because it doesn't cost much. You see.
Yes.
So
now, what standards say that boy now say that comes in at 20? It is all boys now.
No, boys and girls.
It's boys and girls.
Yeah.
Now, at that stage, would they be able to read and write English?
Badly.
Yes.
Badly. There's a lot of work in teaching them. And I have the advantage, you see, because I was teaching Irish for so long as a second language, and now I'm teaching English as a second language.
Yes.
And there's a lot of corrections and a lot of work and a lot of writing.
Yes.
I'd be kept busy, quite busy,
So things like newspapers, magazines, these would be useful to you also, would they?
They would, of course, but you don't have any they don't have any magazines, they don't have any newspapers. The village where I'm in now, there's no electricity, there's no telephone, there is a shop, but you wouldn't go into it. Do you know what they sell? Do you know the big long bars of soap that used to be there long ago? They chop off so much. You would see those there. They have a bakery attached to the shop, but you wouldn't eat the bread. The bread is pure leather.
Yes.
But they'll eat it. They'll go off and I'll give them a delicacy and they'll go and they'll buy a loaf of bread. It'll be about that length now, round. And they'll be.
What's that word you use, delicacy?
Delicacy is the currency there.
Oh, I see.
That's the currency. And a delicacy is about 7 pence, between 6 and 7 pence. And the bread is called tapalapa.
Yes.
So if you go, next time you go into the supermarket in Macroom and say you want tapalapa, I wonder what would they say to you.
And what's that bread made of?
It is made of flour.
But what grain?
I don't know what grain it is now.
Yeah.
I don't know because I never.
It could
I
be
never,
rye or barley.
It could be. No, it's just white bread. It's just kind of white, but
yes.
Here I've seen it, and there'll be streaks inside, and it is
I understand. Stuff. Yes.
There'll be grey streaks going down through it.
What do you feed those students at the break? You were saying you gave them a lunch at the break.
I give them a delicacy and then buy bread. And when I get fully organised, then I buy a sack of groundnuts. Mm-hmm. And they can all take a good supply of groundnuts. And it was the vice principal in Fatima that advised that. He said, because the groundnuts are nutritious. He said, if you're going to try and give them rice and meat or fish or something, he said, your money won't last only a very short time.
I see.
So every day they would get plenty of the groundnuts. Yes. And they were nutritious, and they could,
I see.
And they were delighted. They delighted with it. You'd see them queuing up for their groundnuts.
I understand, yeah.
And they're all being paid for by people here in Ireland.
Oh, very good.
It is wonderful.
Paid for by people in Ireland. What would keep one of those students now in what you're talking about for a year, say?
When I started off this business, we had a meeting and we assessed the whole situation, and for everything, to cover every possibility, £120 for a year. And that would be schooling, uniform. You'd have to have the uniform because they wouldn't have decent dress.
Sure.
And they're very proud, like they wouldn't come to school if they have torn clothes, no. So they have the uniform, and we buy the cloth in bulk, and then the local tailors make the uniform, and you have it as cheap as possible.
Yes.
Then they have the copybooks and the pens, and they pay for the schooling themselves, and then they have the exam fees. They are pretty stiff too, the exam fees. And then they get their lunch as far as possible, until the money runs out, and they'll get the money to go to the clinic, or if they have to go to the hospital or something, they won't have any money.
So you're talking about how many students? You said
the number in the school now. It's the new high school. And
yes.
It's only 1 year and there are about 360.
Yes.
They'd be grade 10s now.
Yes.
So I would be giving lunch to a lot of those. Yes.
So you're talking about a sum 40,000 a year or 50?
£40,000.
Yes.
Oh no! I wouldn't. The money would have run out long before that. But I will be taking back with me. I suppose this time. You're right. I'll be taking back somewhere between 30 and 35,000.
Yes.
And that's a lot of money in Ireland. But by God, it's one hell of an unbelievable lot of money out in the Gambia.
Yeah. It is. Now, where you're concerned yourself, there's no question of 25,000 a year pounds as a salary, or
not at all. I was working up my salary because I was asked today, and my salary is something around £113 a month.
Yes.
And that comes from the Catholic Mission.
I see.
Because I'm beyond retiring age.
Yes.
You have to retire at 55. But the Catholic Mission has kept me on, and they don't want to. The head chief of education, or the chief education officer, he's a Gambian. He did his studies in London, in Bristol. He has a master's in education and so on. And he is insisting that I continue. And when I started in the new school, I said, no, these are grade 10s. There'll be 3 years to grade 12. That's grade 10, 11 and 12. And I said, when I'm finished with those, I'm going out. And he said, no, you're not going out. He said, we'll keep you on longer. And you see, because of my experience in teaching the second language, as I was saying, they do very well in exams.
Yes.
And that is well known.
Yes.
Like I have thank God, they do very well for me.
Yes.
Where they do extremely badly with the other teachers that are with me, African teachers.
I see.
They don't have the commitment, or they don't.
Now, say the student that comes in at 20, how many years will that student stay with you? 3 years. 3 years, yeah. And grade 10, grade 11 and grade 12. And that would be, I suppose, similar then to junior cert or intermediate cert?
It would be their senior 3 years. It would be like our transition year, maybe fifth
Yes.
year and leaving cert.
Yes.
But the standard wouldn't be anywhere as I don't think
Yes.
our standard would even be as high as groups are the junior
Junior
cert.
certificate, yes.
We wouldn't have a
But it is put them on the road.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Now, where do they go after that?
If they get 5 credits, they can go into teaching, to nursing.
Yes.
They can go to university.
Yes.
It opens the whole thing
It
for them.
opens
The
it.
priesthood.
Yes.
They have to have 5 credits for all those, and 5 credits is 5 passes.
Yes.
Right? And there's a great satisfaction in getting them to pass, getting their 5 to open up for them.
Yeah.
And
Sorry now for kind of being curious. Say the actual class now, say first, second or third year, what actually would you do with them? What lesson? What would be
In
your
English?
average lesson in English? Yes.
I take some that have a textbook,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we'd read a story in the text and we discuss it then.
Ah,
And
yes. Yes.
There'd be questions in the textbook as well. We have them here in Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
And at homework, and as homework, then they'll write them out. Or I
Yes.
might get them to write them out in class and supervise them,
Yes.
because that they make a lot of mistakes.
I know.
You get them to give them a paragraph and say, copy that out now. It is
Yes.
amazing the number of mistakes they will make
Yes.
in spellings and so on, and they'll copy it out.
Yes.
I get great satisfaction out of that too, because that they improve very much.
Yes. Year med ta rodelle gutsen akvillig moran desne missioner na fyrra hen har saile. Ta en gaelger aus gutsa.
That's the well,
Sure,
ta
sure.
higum with
Agus binnen tu usaida skak blin.
when you move out of Scotland, Lian,
Ac nise Gambia.
Nisa Gambia.
Sure.
Kegum in Gwelling, rain to going to Gambia.
Is it okay?
The Sagot to Earing.
Sure.
Miles Feta, Shimmer, Sagot Candishire, and the Holy Ghost Fathers, Gwelling Bragg shoot.
Sassigo.
Augusta Matty Murphy, Australia, Sagotele. Agus Gwelling Bragg shoot. Agus Ian Urgum would make a Gwelling and Father Vino shooting.
Dirike, agus ta changa runda give dun telephone.
Nor vi mystik, it's wrong, agus nor vi mer strain bulle. Tog me ide doiv in Gwelling. Agus ni vi en binchi deg fiachen toram. Vi en nisse kog mi mer bulle. Ak nir vala mer raglig ma slowing igen din. Ta tjana eski de vas slog.
Hanna man deal. Kad fan isle den var sinur där av akrossa. Hanna man deal like.
Ja. Graham came williger to sen goilchik when he could eshi kul shile de close.
Hanna va.
Chimmalach. Komusuk.
Mola komusuk. Mola krummelot in einem krim Derek Mount Horling.
In einem krim chat.
Okay. Now, binnen tu faim as gak blin.
Oh ja, tag måle go ta blianas trukka kanti go meg mona going egalash kiran erelan klere. The course undan kedur na dige schacht agus capog mar privide me schachto hen agus de wiesen son na course fa 3 course gudi hocht muri kuri me gudi in Afrik. Ni vim shi swal ne schachton course wine an keun derna agus dinim fose agus fai man target son an target chin dealan she as ma hiki da wala agus harnash agus tugun che arget pochodum agus muna dagan wala gyoid in egen an post agus vegan target de shoot no ke shoot so shine fad leske alont kontakt wala she het
Oh, so ta kan rodesha.
agus ta glor americana kon peace card de video shmo
Sha.
agus vidar sko mona så skolumse agus ta så gut start ta na kursi sho dine togon chi dine og ering agus artnele kon lechten og hurtigas maskin agus de video sig dina vontus marjolormse Kada enen tosse go dogon chi tu wale ga hen vlien kon an robur sha enen so de dagos marchine ko du negos dina ana haktak me agus Sjunire vona kararla go sa lenda sire
Sha. Wel bunt kan rode. An mo schachten kaffa
3 schachteni
3 schachteni.
agus ko la tachta agus la machta agus fe hen lansan
Dirike. Agus tan kalashti kiran ni len kurmak gumser kalashti kiran. Ta she felan cholin isher feig da had no kege blin.
de askalia kalastik irane shaska kuig nerige shaska kuig no shaska she
Sha.
da hanig emer develer utra na herren kon an kalaste oscail go heffigiúil agus hána sé helicopter agus de húrling an helicopter sa farc os scór a chláiste agus ó héine leis sin park de Valera.
Sa com,
Park de Valera. Agus Doris de Valera. An art na bhfuil an chuir plaque suas.
Agus tá mí is cuioine vinis gcuoine ó Chorcaig, ó Cahar Chorcaí agus na Balte Gorcaig.
Agus ó bhlaiclí.
Na.
Ó Liminoch. Tagann siad go léir.
Agus cé bhíad daoine bhíon áil?
De bhíoch céad dahad céad chuige. Ach tá sin ísteach móris mar tá tithe rééis sé rias. Agus sé zúntaach, tá sé tarlainn go chéan bhéalteach tá sé tarlainn neceling an sa leis. Is zúntaach go bhfuil go leor ag na daoine na gádóibh an stróis sin a choréin. Tá sin neas blachan is.
Tá sa gom. Agus é sin féin aran sin daoine I gairías a méile an gairí agus I géirí.
Agus a gúlé agus.
Agus ná chuir sé sin begáibh I goláiste Irán ó Stán chursús agus Kistin.
Sinné
agus ná sé sin agad.
Iar tá me sé ráithíanana chuige sin inis.
Tá sa gom. Cé bhí arachtáil
Gweil agus seornta.
Ó ghailta.
A bheith go ar chormach Machárig agus Eileen í drisco.
Bhí sé gobar leis sa choláiste hí sa trabolgan.
An raibh. Bhí Micklin Sean leis a raibh.
Da bhí, is na chuigeadí, chuigeadné, agus bhí me bhain céile leis sa garí bhór
raibh se.
Agus búntaach an duine.
Chormach agus Eileen. Búntaach an bhirt bhí siad.
Eileen gan áras. An míoch Eileen sa choláiste níl an cléire.
Da hagad síisteach. Chormúisteach. Nuair a chósáin den céadúir bhí sí múnán.
Tá sa gom.
Deir seaan. Hagad sí féin agus chormúisteach ar chuirt na chuin.
Tá sa gom.
Agus bhí an vertico bhí siad lách agus deas agus úrsal.
Síon sa cé.
Agus gweling áling.
Ach, se de búntaach an chóras bhí sa méile an gairig leis líon chláiste na mún, agus búntaach an rodéanú is mínító na páistí, bhí rangacha, de bhí na cléhíacha, bhí siúil ar na conig, bhí snábacha, célí, ógáníocht.
Agus ráúntaach a bhí an ag na choláiste sin an méid féthireachta a dintarra. Bíon siad bíon féthireachta siúra an tám ar fad.
Ó se do bharmh sé mé is cuoine me tar éis na céile ar a héndeag is tíhe bheoh go ag siúil na máthras na cílte cnába. Da brí sé mar chrí agus ach sin mar atá péiscéile de chaméid tú an rud sin ar siúil an córam sin sa scoile go leiste Irán an tám go léir agus an ghailgí go húntacha go fós. Ná ó héamh na críostíochta de ó héamh na misiún de gan áras níl tusa go díreach an sé gobar ar son na misiún. Pan tú gobar leis na misiún.
Leis na misiún,
se. Ach mar sin féin, you're working with the mission, with the Holy Ghost Fathers. But we must think of the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. The smallest of all the seeds, and it can grow into the biggest tree. And you have that influence over the student body and over people in general. They must realize the sacrifice that you made. They take it for granted where the brothers are concerned. Now, what about local clergy? The
native clergy.
Yes.
We have, there are about, I think, 15.
I see.
Native priests. Yeah. And one native priest left.
Yes.
He's in the States or somewhere.
Yes.
But they have a good supply of native priests, and there are more coming on.
You see, we have met another member of the Roche family who found himself redundant, which was marvellous. The mission had reached that pitch there that the natives were able to look after themselves.
The same thing has happened in the Gambia because the Irish priests have dwindled. But the Irish priests, there are only 4 or 5 left now. The bishop is from Michael Cleary from Mayo, a grand man. Then there's Father Casey from Mullingar, and he's away out in the bush. Father Sharp, Miles Fay, Father Fay, and Father Murphy. That's about the number of Irish that are there now. There were big numbers of Irish. But as the Irish numbers were dwindling, the diocesan clergy were increasing.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have about 20 priests now altogether in the Gambia, including the Irish and the natives. And the natives are all young men.
Yes.
And I was talking to a priest who went out for 2 years from a diocese in Ireland. And I was saying, he was in the capital, and I was saying, what kind of a social life, is there any social life? And he said, it's very, very poor. I said, do you go out for a beer or anything? And he said, I do. He said, but he said, the native clergy don't drink.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
You know, the native clergy don't drink, he said, and they don't go out.
Yes.
But of course, the thing in the Gambia is that drinking is not fashionable at all. A Muslim country, 92% Muslim, 6% Christian, and the rest would be the animists. And as I was saying, that the Catholics, the priests, they're concentrated on the animists.
Yes.
Because they could get nobody from the Muslim.
There's one of the students that has been, he's been sponsored, and he sent this photograph to the man who sponsored him. What is his name?
I don't know what his name is now because it's gone out of my head, but it's written in the back.
Oh, yes.
Can you read it in the back? I have my glasses with me.
Oh, yes, yeah. Gabriel Joof.
Oh, Joof, yeah. That's his name,
That's
Joof.
right.
Gabriel
And this
Joof.
was...
and his name is Gabriel, so therefore he's a Catholic.
Yes.
But if you had Muhammad, or if you had Abdullah, or Buba, or Baba, they're all Muslims.
Oh, that now is a question I didn't I didn't ask you about the religious divide in the school. You'd have from all sects.
When I was in Fatima, there would be, and we had a high percentage of Catholics because they were being sent there.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be about 30% Catholic, 70% Muslim.
I see.
But the population of Buyam itself would be about 96, 97% Muslim.
I see.
And down now where I am, as I said, that was a village that was discovered by Father Sharp following the domesticated pig.
Yes.
And it is a big village now, and I don't know how many, there probably have 800 living there, and they're all Catholics.
I see.
There are just a very, very small number of Muslims coming to the school there.
I see.
You know, but when I was giving scholarships in Fatima, I never asked a person's religion. If a person was poor, they could be telling me after, and that's why we have sponsored several Muslims, and they're a beautiful people, the Muslims. As far as relationship with the Catholics, they're outstanding.
You mentioned Fatima there, and just in case people might think it is the Fatima in Portugal. Fatima, of course, was Muhammad's daughter.
That's right.
And you see,
and that is why the parish was called Fatima.
Yes,
because it was in the.
Yes,
it was in with the Muslims.
But it's the name is old. It wasn't in recent times. It's called Fatima. No.
Yeah. And I'm told that Fatima in Portugal was established when the Moors,
the
Muslims were there.
Right. Fulton Sheen used to connect. He was the great American writer, Catholic writer. He used to connect, the conversion of the Muslims, possible because Our Lady appeared in Fatima, and Fatima was Muhammad's daughter, and there was a Fatima in Africa. There are other Fatimas.
Well, the Fatima in Africa it's Fatima Parish.
Yes.
And that was done by the Catholic Mission.
Oh, is that right?
And then the school was called Fatima.
Yes, and of course, that would have appealed to the local Muslim population.
It was done deliberately, I would say. But they would say to you, you talk Muslims, and they'd be talking about the school, and they'd call it Saint Fatima.
Yes. Now, you are in the best of health and form at the moment.
Thanks be to God.
If you put the camera on Derma there, you'll find that he's in the best of health. Now, you've had a fairly tremendously traumatic experience since this time, 12 months.
Oh, this was a rough year.
Yes.
I went out there, I went out late. I arrived out on the 1st of October to this new place. And I went in to the house I was staying in. I have a bedroom and a sitting room, a kitchen and a shower and toilet, but there's no running water, of course. And I remember I went in and it was dark. I had been in with Father Sharp, the parish priest, and then I went to the house and I had a candle, lit a candle, no electricity. And the room was invaded by moths and bees, and the big bumblebees, and they're coming that hit off the wall. And I had to go to bed. I put out the light because it was... And as soon as I went into bed, I could hear the mosquitoes, and they have a kind of a zing sound. You'd hear them all over the place. And I've got spray. Father Sharp gave me spray, and I sprayed it around the place anyway. And then I went to bed and I fell asleep. And next I woke up with a thud. I heard something falling, and I had my torch, and what was it? A bat had come down through the manhole in the ceiling. Now, bats, do you see, are reputed to carry rabies. And I'd be frightened in my life of bats in case that they might, they fly around, they might strike against you, and you know. Yeah. So I decided anyway I was going to get up, and I lit the candle and opened the door, and I got the brush. And by God, the second bat had come. And eventually I got him out and I closed the door, but I slept away again after that. But then in Buyam, I never boiled the water. I filtered it, but never boiled it. And I was very sick from October up to the beginning of March. I would vomit nearly every day, and I had lost over 3 stone weight. And I was wondering what it was. And I had got malaria 7 times. It was a terrible year. And it was discovered an old priest, Father Reggie Galuli, he's about 80 years now or more. And he's retired in the Gambia. And he said, "Did you ever test the water?" And I said, "I didn't." As soon as I started boiling the water, my problem was over. No more problem. And I could feel I was strong. Mm-hmm. And I feel I had energy and I was going great. And then I went to bed. I was getting terrible headaches. Terrible headaches across there in my forehead. And I remember one day taking 9 paracetamol tablets. And I was saying, would they kill me or not? But that it was... I went to bed anyway, and I woke up in the morning, it was Passion Sunday, to find that I had developed a stroke. Oh. On my left side was dead. I couldn't move on the bed. I couldn't do nothing. I had no balance. I had nothing whatsoever. Oh. So the guy brings the water. I shouted him to get the parish priest, and he had a key for the door as well. And he came in, and I was moved to the clinic, the Westfield Clinic, in the Gambia, where I had been before because of the malaria. I was there twice before. It was my 3rd visit there. And plenty of cockroaches and ants and everything around the place. But anyway, I was there for 16 days in bed, and they could do nothing for me. And eventually my nephew, Dr. Stephen Roche, he's in Limerick. He went out on Friday and brought me back on Sunday and arrived in Brussels Monday morning and brought me to Dublin. And I was inside at 11 o'clock on Monday. I was in the hospital in Dublin. And I had brain surgery. And as soon as that was... I don't remember coming home. I remember nothing. I don't remember the plane. I remember nothing at all. And after the operation, I remember everything. And in fact, some of the family were there before I went in for the operation. And they were surprised because they were allowed in to talk to me after the operation. And I was looking for tea. I remember it well. I had fierce, terrible mind for tea. And it had been a perfect recovery in every way. Look at the hand that wouldn't work. Look at the foot that wouldn't work. Absolutely perfect. No speech impediment. There was no therapy, neuro or physiotherapy was needed. I was taken down and tested, and they said, no problem. You were totally recovered. I think it was miraculous. And I would like to tell this about 25 years ago, there was a woman from over there in Monafluc. She was Danny Murphy's wife in Strahanard. And she put copies of the Divine Mercy devotion around the church in Carriganima. I got it picked up on Good Friday. And I was so impressed when I read it that I began to promote the Divine Mercy devotion among the extended family. Right? And everybody was very impressed with it. When I was at my worst outside in the Gambia, in the Westfield Clinic, they were making the novena in Cork because it's an annual novena. And when the news came and they got Mass said for me inside, the priests that were inside in the crowd, they said Mass for me. And I came home during that novena. I think that my recovery was miraculous. And a priest up in Dublin, he caught my hand and he held it like that and he said, "This is a miracle of divine mercy." And I don't doubt it. Thanks be to God. But it's amazing. I have absolutely no ill effect from my experience. I had a stroke.
Left side.
The left side was completely dead. And my hand would be there and I'd be saying to my hand to close.
Yes.
And it wouldn't move. I'd have to catch it and close it myself. And the foot was no use.
It was. And this operation now, it removed
there was a clot
in the...
What I figured was wrong with me that I had hemorrhage.
Yes.
And that was the cause of the terrible headaches.
Now, what about hearing? Your sight, no problem on the left side?
Memory, no problem. Speech, no problem.
It was marvellous recovery.
And I was, do you know what, when I was in the hospital, I was a kind of a celebrity. Because the doctors there was a Dr. Thomas and a Dr. the head man, what's his name was? Anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. Dr. Phillips. They used to bring in people, doctors, and they said, "This is the man from the Gambia who has completely recovered brain surgery." And the doctor would shake hands with me and he'd be asking me questions and he'd be talking about me like, I was a celebrity because they said themselves that my recovery was amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember when I went back for my check and Dr. Thomas, he's not an Irishman at all, but he's a white man, he's not an Irishman. And we were inside in his office and he tested me in every way and everything grand. And I said, "Doctor," I said, "this was miraculous." He said, "I'm a Christian too." He said to me like that, "I'm a Christian too," he said. And he said, "I believe," he said, "that your recovery is beyond the usual." He said, it was amazing.
Yeah, because normally there'd be some trace, you wouldn't get the hand completely, or you'd have a limp, or,
I tell you, it was some fright to get when you wake up. And to find that I had a stroke and couldn't move.
Yes, it is. It is, of course.
But thanks be to God,
yeah.
I am completely recovered, and they gave me a certificate written out saying this man has our permission to return to the Gambia. He's fully recovered, and I have that written. Take it with me.
And certainly, Diarmaid de Roche, you haven't lost the power of speech, and that is for sure.
I kissed the Blarney Stone sometime, maybe. I didn't actually.
Yeah. Tommy dan a bhach díot a dhéirmid labhart leat agus tá seanna himún agus tásúla go mbeidh daoine mohan sin inis talanach roinnt airgid a thuairtead chun cabhrú leis na leadzóga seo. Thank you, Diarmaid de Roche, for that interesting account of your work. And some of you listening out there may put the Gambia in your thoughts and in your wills and in your last testaments, and even give up cigarettes maybe for a month or two and send the proceeds to Diarmaid de Roche.
I'd like to make it one point, Donald, and it is this, that in contributions I get, and people are very pleased with this, there is no middleman.
Absolutely.
There's no administrative costs.
Yes.
Whatever is given goes there.
Straight through.
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be going out now tomorrow and I'll be taking a lot of money with me, and I'll go to the bank and not the day after tomorrow, and I'll go to the bank and I'll get a banker's draft, maybe divided in two, and I'll take it out and I'll give it into the chief accountant and the Catholic Secretariat. He'll get a change for me at the best rate.
Yes.
Right? And that goes in there into the bank, and I have a checkbook. Yes. And it starts straight away.
Straight away, yeah. Thank you very much, Diarmaid de Roche.
Tá fáilte ród go mí mágad.